Hey folks, welcome to Shift Office Hours. I'm Cynthia Closkey, one of the partners at Shift. And with me is Sarah Mayer.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be back again.
So we're here for Office Hours. We do this every Friday, almost every Friday, except for next week, which we'll talk about in a bit. And we have just been jumping online to talk about marketing issues and answer questions, specifically for small businesses and nonprofits, organizations that maybe are having, particular kind of hit during the recent pandemic or the current pandemic and recent shutdowns and openings and closings and who knows what else, to try and offer some marketing ideas to help weather the storms.
Yeah, that's right. So among the things we're going to talk about today, sort of some tactics that you can do right now if you're a small business, whether you're on a main street and you have a storefront, or you're a service-based business. We have lots of different ideas on what you can be doing to kind of pivot your marketing strategy, if you will.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about that and some other things, but we thought we would start with something that's super timely, that is a hot topic at the moment and is intended to start July 1st, which is a Facebook advertising boycott, which also means an Instagram advertising boycott, since they are one and the same ad package. Sarah, what do we know about this idea for the boycott?
So basically, there's a group called Stop Hate for Profit, and they're kind of the organizing body behind this boycott effort. And it's an effort that's asking current advertisers that advertise with Facebook and Instagram to pause their ad spend for the month of July. I almost said January for some reason. And, a couple of really, several really well-known, pretty large brands are jumping on the boycott bandwagon to support this effort. And really what they're asking of Facebook is to, put more restrictions on the kind of news that's getting put out, and the kind of hurtful messages that are being allowed on their platform, and sort of really causing pain for people or causing confusion about very specific health concerns or whatever it might be in today's world. So that's I think I've summed it up, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's an interesting effort. It's not the first time that people have organized or have had various kinds of efforts to have Facebook change their way of being.
Right.
I can think of a couple. There was, what was it? There was a hashtag delete Facebook. And of course, people periodically either pause their Facebook accounts. I know several people right now who have their Facebook on pause, or they completely delete their own accounts. So people have been speaking out toward Facebook. What do we think about why is now different? I mean, certainly this effort's very organized. This website, stophateforprofit.org, is a thing.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think, and I don't know a whole lot about the delete Facebook movement. I think that was, if I'm understanding it, is more of an individual, like me as an individual profile. I would pause it, delete it, go inactive, whatever the right terminology is. Whereas this particular boycott is specifically aimed at the thing that Facebook, 99% of its revenue is coming from advertising dollars. So this is a boycott of advertising dollars to really send a message to Facebook that, hey, brands are serious, and people are serious about this. They need to see some action on this. So I think that's what's a little bit different about those two things.
And Facebook has done some things. They've let us know that you can turn, as a Facebook user, you can for yourself turn political ads off. There's just a setting for doing that, and they worded it as you will see fewer ads because they're afraid that something that could be construed as a political ad, or something that is a political ad but not identified as such by the advertiser, could slip through. And so they're trying to give themselves a little Facebook saving in that. But that's not quite the same, really, is it? I mean, first of all, political ads are only one part of the problem,
Mm-hmm.
and the organic content is perhaps a bigger part of the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that we are inundated by messages on social media platforms that feel news-like, and they may not be coming from a legitimate news source. And it's kind of hard to parse those things out. So, we do depend on the sources, the platforms, to make sure that there's some way to do that, some way to reliably know that what you're reading is real.
Right, right. But the idea then of a brand, a company, a business, nonprofit, anybody choosing to take on this boycott or abide by this boycott and stop advertising, there's some pretty big brands, as you said, that are doing that. Ben and Jerry's, no surprise, they're frequently on these kinds of things. And interestingly, a number of like outdoor clothing and equipment companies.
Carry a lot in that realm. Yeah. Patagonia, Eddie Bauer, North Face seem to all be on board with this. And they're pretty, I would guess, pretty large advertisers. I haven't found an article yet that has, and I haven't read all the articles, there's been a lot, estimating the dollar amount that these large brands are, what the loss is up from these particular folks. So I don't know, is this a huge hit, or how big of a hit is it?
I don't know. I personally don't think I've ever seen a Ben and Jerry's ad on social media. But
do you not like ice cream?
I do like ice cream.
Yeah, come on. Maybe we don't have a Ben and Jerry's location nearby. I don't know.
I'm just not being targeted. I don't know. So we don't know how much the boycott is actually going to hurt them. We don't know how long it'll go on. I mean, people talk about it being like the month of July, perhaps. I suppose it could continue longer. Not sure.
North Face started earlier. They started, I don't know, maybe it was last week. It was this month. They started early. And then, some brands are saying they're, sort of disconnecting completely from Facebook. So Fiber, which I'm not, Viber, sorry, I'm saying that wrong, is an app that uses Facebook as their login infrastructure, and they're saying they're going to disconnect completely from that, and as well as the advertising dollars. So there are some brands that are taking this pretty seriously, and indeed these bigger brands. But I have a stat here that I found in one of these articles that says almost 76% of Facebook's advertising revenue comes from small to medium-sized businesses, the kind that are kind of unlikely to take this pause because they need the revenue that's generated from their Facebook or Instagram ads. So it's hard, I guess, for me to say how much of a hit is Facebook going to take. Is this a big enough thing to make them pay attention and say, okay, we really have to readjust or rethink or at least review and come out with, how we're going to adjust our policies, or if we're not, at least something, like, what are they saying about it all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to know what their decision process is going to be. And I know some employees within Facebook have also been raising issues, and people have left the company as a result.
Right.
But it's hard for a small business, to just say, I'm not going to use Facebook, because it is a really useful advertising channel. We have several clients that are using it. It has a lot of useful targeting, which is kind of weird. I mean, if, people, there's a creepiness to it, like all of the things, like all of the online advertising. But, if you have the opinion that, hey, you are trying to find people who do want to see your ad. So you're trying to target them based on, for example, a lookalike audience, an audience that's, to show the ad to people who are like the people who said that they like your page. Or particular regions or areas or interest areas. There's lots of great targeting that Facebook offers because they know so much about their members, because people tell their Facebook all the things. So it's hard to just say, well, I'm not going to do that. It can be a major drop in your lead generation.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we have several clients that we are managing their Facebook and Instagram campaigns, and we let them know if didn't know already about the boycott and what kind of was happening, and gave them a recommendation based on what we thought would be something that they would want to consider. And so, in most all cases, these are small organizations or businesses that do depend on the leads that are generated through the campaigns. And so really the advice was, we don't think you should pull your ads from Facebook or Instagram at this time. Let's continue to watch it. But certainly evaluate within if you feel that that's in line with our recommendation, your own organization's principles, and how your employees are maybe feeling about it. Kind of take all those things into factor when you're making this decision.
Mm-hmm. It's there's a lot of like trying to live by your principles that companies are more and more, I think, doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important.
Yeah, I mean, in the cases with our clients, they have opted to stay in the game, if you will, because of the fact that they are, they really do need the awareness and the lead gen of what brings. And they're in other types of, digital campaigns. They're in Google, maybe they're in advertising in Microsoft or LinkedIn or in other places. And Facebook and Instagram is really just one part of that. And they really can't, disrupt that right now.
Right. And it's a tough call.
It is.
I myself kind of struggle with how much I even want to recommend Facebook, for various reasons. And I wonder how it fits in with my ethos, and yet I find myself staying on there because it is the way that I can communicate best with, family and friends who are far away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a struggle. I think it's a struggle. I think it's, something that we as individuals want to pay attention to, what comes out of this boycott, or, how Facebook handles this, I think is a real turning point.
Yeah. I'd like to see them respond and do more. I'd like to see them really take ownership of the news that's on their platform. And they've made some noises about it, but then they also have done some things that seem really hypocritical or frankly evil. If that's not too strong a word.
It's a word.
It's a word. It's a word of its own strength.
Yeah.
So it is a bit of a tough call. I anticipate it's not going to, people do want to throw money at that platform. And so we will be seeing a lot of political ads. We're going to be seeing a lot of people posting there. And I find it's very useful to mute. I'm a big fan of muting and blocking. So I also advise people to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as you were saying earlier about the different settings that are available, I would just encourage you to check those settings, every once and again, because every now and again, they do change them. And I think that, they're going to just by default set them to what they want the user to pick. So if you don't go in there and change away from the defaults that they're giving you, then, you're maybe seeing stuff you don't want to see, or, just go in there. They have the privacy settings and all sorts of settings that you probably haven't looked at in a really long time, like maybe since you set up your profile. So
right.
As an individual, I'm talking about, not necessarily as a business. So as an individual, going in there and checking your profile settings is worth the 5 minutes.
Absolutely. And your privacy settings in particular, like take a look at and think about who you're comfortable seeing your information, who you're okay with seeing, I don't know, your birthday and your email address and all of those things. There's the ability to really kind of lock all of that down much more, which, maybe is a wise move. And then as a business, while you can choose what information you want to post on there, make sure you're keeping your employee and individual information very, very separate from your business information. But also remember that when people comment or respond to you, you can delete comments. You can be a moderator. You want to be thoughtful about that too. Like have a consistent policy. Don't just be consistent and be clear about what your policies are.
Yeah. And make that, if you have employees, make sure that that's known within your organization as well. How to behave on social media if you're acting as the company, that is.
Even when you're not, because in some ways people will associate you, or they'll be able to see who your employer is. So,
Right.
And we've seen, a lot of things where a video about a person has gone viral for them doing some nasty thing and they lose their job as a result. So it's not a bad idea to establish some policies with your employees about what is and what is not and what are your values.
That's right. I concur.
So for folks watching online, what do you think about this? Like, do you have we'd love to know more about what you think. So if you can always pop on the chat and share some ideas with us, or send us a note at officehours@shiftcollaborative.com. And we're just real interested to see how this is going to continue to evolve. Mm-hmm. For both of those things, you can also send us questions, which we can try and tackle today if we get them today, or in a future episode.
Yep, that's right. All right, do you want to move on to our next topic?
Sure. The next thing we wanted to talk about, kind of carrying back to last week, we were kind of starting to speak about it, is the idea of the journey that a customer makes between not knowing anything about a brand to finding out about it and making a purchase of a product or service.
Right. And so we have a little graphic. Do you want to share that?
I'll share it.
Perhaps first. It can be helpful. But basically, so, a lot of what we do with our clients is focused on the awareness and consideration when we're doing campaigns, at least, end of this journey. And really, what this is, from when they first become aware to hopefully when they, make a purchase or call you or whatever the action you want them to take, to then, keeping them as your customer and then making them kind of, the advocates for your brand, if you will, or brand ambassadors. So that whole cycle, thinking about that for one particular customer type, and you might have, a couple of different customer types. And so you would want to think about each of those customers and what their particular, pain points are along this journey, what their emotions are along this journey, because then that can help you really, target the kinds of communications that you're going to send them based on knowing, how they're feeling and what they're considering at that moment. You can, make sure that content is matched to their present moment in time.
Mm-hmm. What I particularly like about this illustration, which by the way is from freshdesk.com, a blog post that they had published. What I like about it is that it highlights the importance of really thinking about what for each message, what information the person already knows and what they don't know, and what they may have already experienced about you and maybe they haven't, so that you're really thinking about each touch point in its position in trying to move someone or help someone move down this path. So I like that a lot. And the other piece I like that you just pointed out is it's, the purchase itself is not the end. There's the ability of any particular customer to be a repeat customer, or to stay with you, particularly if you've got like an ongoing service or subscription, something along those lines. But also then they can be your advocate and they can actually help with your service and make, credible testimonials about you, or tell their friends and other folks to make a purchase as well. So all of that stuff is really, you're reminding people and you're engaging with the customer in so many ways at so many points.
Right. Yeah, I think that the other thing that you want to think about in this, at all those different points, would be, where is the potential customer likely to drop off? And looking at those drop-offs and analyzing those and trying to figure, because it's going to happen. I mean, not everybody is going to get all the way from awareness to all the way to advocate. So they're going to drop off at different points, and, look at those and learn from that, and let that kind of guide and inform any changes in your strategy, content strategy for a particular customer type. Specifically, in that awareness phase, like online ads, email marketing, marketing, paid search, social media ads, you're likely to get a large amount of impressions through those types of efforts, and maybe hopefully a large amount of clicks, but it might not all lead into consideration. So looking at not just the people that do the things that you want them to do, but the ones that aren't doing, looking at those folks and really trying to learn from that can help improve your strategy.
Mm-hmm. And there's a piece of this too, where your product itself can be part of that message. So particularly like an online sign up, or the way people interact at your physical store. All of those things are really also touch points, also can be kind of, they're definitely part of your brand, and they're part of your message, and just as much a thing that can help or hurt you.
Yeah. And I will say about the retention piece too, is that, it costs less to retain and resell a current customer than it does to acquire a new customer. So really do not discount those people in that section of the customer journey, because they're going to cost less to reach. You can probably reach them with your newsletter in seconds, or with an offer in seconds, and they're more likely to convert because they already know who you are. So definitely, pay good attention to that retention. If you've done all that work to get them to that point, don't let them drop off there.
Exactly.
All right.
Do we find, can you think of an example of a customer that we've had where this was kind of a surprise to them? I can think of a client that we were working with to build a website, and really we ended up in building the website actually kind of getting into what was their sales process, because that was an important part. Like, it was a long sales process, and this happens with a variety of different services. In this case, it had to do with retrofitting homes for people with disabilities. And we had to really talk with them through, like, what are all the steps? And we kind of ended up raising points in there where they had opportunities to have different kinds of materials, but also different forms and things, which isn't typically what someone thinks of as what a marketing firm would do.
Yeah, I think, like any planning exercise, this one in particular is really asking you to think about your audience, put yourself, in their shoes, empathize with them, and then make what you're offering fit their circumstances. And so you really, we have definitely encountered many clients that haven't really dug deep into their audience, and kind of got really close and figured out what makes them tick. And I think that's one of the things that's really important as a marketer to do. Otherwise, you're just putting stuff out there and hoping that it works, and not really knowing, if the images that you're using are landing and resonating with people. If you're not looking at that stuff on a regular basis, and, understanding your audience as a whole, is a whole thing. We can talk about that for hours, all the different tactics, and you can do surveys, and you can do focus groups, and you can do polls in your social media. I mean, there's just so much you can do to kind of tap into your audience and what they want from you and what matters to them. Mm-hmm. If you take the time to do that and really understand this customer journey, it's an effort to do that, but it'll pay off in the long run. It'll be well worth the effort, investment.
Sure. Absolutely.
Advocate for that for sure.
Right. And this seems like this is what we come back to this often. So what we probably should do is maybe point to, write a little blog post and point to this Fresh Desk article that they wrote, this great blog post, and kind of share some more of this spin, because I have a feeling that in future episodes we're going to come back to this again and again. We'll want to talk more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I think that understanding your audience on its own is not a 5-minute discussion topic. Something much deeper. Yeah. So yeah, speaking of our audience, just a reminder, we do want to hear from you. So feel free to use the chat if you're watching and you have any questions at all about anything under the marketing sun. We're happy to take those, or you can email us at officehours@shiftcollaborative.com. We may not answer that today, but we might answer it in a future episode. So feel free to drop us a line there as well.
One time we won't answer it is next week.
That's right. What is next week?
Next week, the July 3rd is actually going to be a shift holiday, and as it is a holiday for many of us here in the United States, in advance of the July 4th holiday, the very next day, which falls on a Saturday. So we're going to take back the Friday.
Yes. Close down the office, give everybody a little break, long holiday weekend. And so we will not have office hours, but we are going to release one of our next in our series of videos, Shift On videos, and it's going to be Shift On about reporting.
Yeah, all sorts of things. And we haven't actually recorded it yet, so we can't definitively say what we'll say, but basically it's about how to, we want to talk about in particular Data Studio, which is a reporting tool that we use, and how you can use it to pull in data from a bunch of different sources so that you can really create almost like a dashboard or useful report so you can compare the results of your different efforts, the goals that you're hitting, and the costs of the conversions and all sorts of good things.
Yeah, there's so much data that we can look at, and really, so a report is a way to just focus it on what are the things that matter to us in a certain time frame, and it could change throughout the year. There are different things that you might want to be looking at different times based on your business and if there's any seasonality to it. So, we like Data Studio because of that flexibility where you can, just add in pages based on what's going on with the business at that particular moment in time. So sometimes, just as an example, we'll look at how certain keywords are trending to decide whether we want to increase our ad spend. So we might look at it weekly. If we see some sort of trend, then we change our strategy. But we also look at things ongoing on a monthly basis, on an annual basis. So there's all sorts of awesome stuff you can do with it. So we're excited to share more about it on this video.
It really is helpful to really put numbers to the things that you're doing, and it makes our conversations with our clients about tactics and overall strategies. It makes everything much more concrete.
Yeah, I mean, if you need to be able to make informed decisions, and data is just a great way to do that. You just look at one or two things and make decisions. You have to look at the whole thing, the whole puzzle.
For sure. So that'll be next week. We're going to release it on Friday, July 3rd. And then we'll be back for office hours the following week, which I assume is the 10th, if I'm looking at a calendar, if my math is right.
That's right.
So yesterday you were a part of a webinar.
I was. So I was on a webinar for Allegheny Together. And Allegheny Together is a program of the county, Allegheny County, and its partners. One of those partners is Fourth Economy, and they do a lot of really great economic development work with municipalities and communities. And so they've had a webinar series for small businesses in sort of targeted communities, those with main streets that have really been impacted, or that have, main streets with lots of businesses that are trying to kind of navigate their way through the pandemic and come out of it on the other side. And so this particular webinar, and I don't know if they do them weekly or monthly, I'm not sure, but this one in particular was about really kind of beefing up your infrastructure, your technology, your website, and the things from a marketing perspective that you can be doing right now, or you should be thinking about doing right now to weather the storm. So I think we're just going to talk about that a little bit, I guess, what I talked about there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a real challenge. And again, this is a thing that our clients have been asking a lot of questions about, and every company is different. Mm-hmm. Every organization is different. And so there's no one rule, but there are some guidelines, or at least things that you can ask yourself.
Yeah, I focused, kind of in two main areas in my presentation. One around owned actually 3 areas. One around owned tactics, and those owned media tactics are what they sound like, which is the things that you're doing that you control: your website, your social media accounts, your email marketing, if you do direct mail. Those are the things that are in your control. You can make changes to them potentially. You can think about editing certain things or doing something with those. You don't have to be beholden necessarily to another entity to do something about them. So my advice really is to focus on those things that you control right now. Think about, for example, your brand. Is your messaging today resonating with your customer of today? So, your customer pre-pandemic had different behavior. Now they're working from home, they're grocery shopping from home, they're watching all of their entertainment from home and doing a lot more streaming of things like podcasts, and they're shopping a lot online. So if they're changing, how has that impacted? I'm sure it's impacted your business. And so what can you be doing to update your messaging so that it resonates more with this moment that your customer is facing? So looking at your messaging, thinking about, how it might be landing in social media, and also, is it consistent? What you're saying on your website, is it the same voice and tone that you're using in your email marketing, for example, or in your social media? Do you have a messaging at all? Like, have you done that? If you haven't, you really, this would be a good time to kind of hunker down and focus on improving your brand message.
Yeah. What makes you unique and how you uniquely express that to others.
Right. And the other kind of advice I gave around brand is maybe this is a good time to do some business planning. There's a resource called strategizer.com, and they have it's a one-page template where you need to sit down and answer the questions, you fill it out, and you have your business plan. I kind of counsel people right now in this moment not to look sort of beyond 6 months, maybe not even look beyond 3 months. If you're a retail storefront where you can no longer be that retail storefront, you don't know what's going to happen in terms of people shopping again in your store. So you need to figure out, just in a short period of time, what you might be able to do. So business planning, I think, is really important to do anytime, but now is really a good moment to sort of take stock in what your priorities are and what your goals are for the next few months with your business.
It's a good time too to rethink things like your distribution channels, because again, things are changed. Think about what are new or add-on products or services that fit with your brand and your core thing, but maybe that are better suited to the current world. Mm-hmm. So all of those things would fall under that sort of business planning. Just ask yourself questions. Think big. I mean, you can always be a little bit smaller, but why not think broadly and just give yourself some what ifs, see what you can find.
Yeah. I think, the maybe positive light or what we can take from this pandemic is what we've seen is a lot of businesses come up with really innovative ideas to stay open. They've completely transformed their operations so that they can have contactless delivery. Maybe they've, started, instead of, manufacturing clothing, they're starting to manufacture face masks. This pandemic has forced business owners to really be innovative and try new things and, try to figure out how to stay afloat. And I think that it's great to see businesses doing that. And really this spirit of not giving up in a moment of maybe panic has really been positive to see. So it's been good.
Yeah.
So in addition to your brand, one of the other, as you mentioned, distribution channels, you want to think about your website. And, if you're not currently having the capabilities to sell products online, so e-commerce, but you have products, you have inventory that you could sell, now is the time to get that store online so that you can be bringing in revenue. But if you're not a business that sells a product, then the things that you can, be thinking about with your website is, one, because everybody is at home and doing all these things that we said from home, they're also interacting with their brands a lot more digitally. So they're going to their website and their social media channels. And so really just ask yourself, when people come to my website, can they easily figure out what I do? Can they easily find what they're looking for, what's going to satisfy the need that they might have? Are you explaining clearly what you're offering right now in this moment? So, kind of take stock of your current content. Perhaps you need to make some edits to it, but then, is there new content that you need to be adding so that you can talk about things that you're doing that have changed since, this pandemic?
I think there, in particular, for example, about people who are businesses that have maybe field sales folks. So someone who would ordinarily be going to visit the customer, talk with them one-to-one, face-to-face, and be able to explain so much in person, and be able to read their customer, their prospect as well. Mm-hmm. And so if we've lost, in some states, I'm sure that's still able to happen. In other states, not so much. Mm-hmm. And so your website can really help you in filling in some of those gaps, as well as, arranging Zoom calls and making it as frictionless as possible to have some kind of personal one-to-one interaction. But then being able to supplement it with things that maybe lead to that, like gated content, like people could maybe want to download a white paper infographic or something, and capturing their lead information so that your salesperson can follow up and set up their video call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point about, if you were doing in-person appointments before and you haven't pivoted into some sort of virtual appointment, now is the time to think about how to do that. There's so many different tools. I mean, we use Zoom, we use Google Meet, but there's a plethora of platforms out there that you can use to do that. And it's a really great, easy way in a video one-to-one kind of connect with that potential customer, or again, back to that existing customer, making sure that you are focused on retention right now as well, and what you can offer those returning customers. Maybe, kind of positioning that Zoom call as, one-to-one time, a really like customized meeting that you're having with them, really making them feel special. Just make it make sense for what your business is and what you offer, but, kind of think about how you can tailor those experiences.
This is a great time, by the way, to, as you were talking about getting, generating content, like let's write those case studies. Let's call up our existing customers, check in, see how they're doing, maybe get a testimonial mm-hmm. that then can be used in different things, or interview them to be a case study, an example. Mm-hmm. So, really kind of reinvesting in your content in a couple different ways, and, using it as a way to reconnect with the people that you need to connect with.
Right. Another thing that's really, I think, in addition to creating content right now, which is definitely a good time to do that, but also, with respect to your website, evaluating your current search engine optimization, your SEO. So there's a ton of really great tools, free tools, by the way. HubSpot has a website, PageGrader, Moz.com has a bunch of free tools to kind of run your website through some of these tools and see where you're at and see what kinds of insights they provide to you. And maybe you can't take all of the recommendations that they give you, but, kind of maybe tackle right now the high priority things that might come out of some of those using some of those free tools. It'll help you on the other side of this. And as we talked about 2 episodes ago, I think, with Google's Core Web Vital update, that's already rolled out, but in 2021, it will start impacting your search engine visibility, because it's going to be the algorithm is going to be taking these vitals into consideration starting then. That means you have from now until then to really make sure that your website is, performing at its optimal level and doing the best that it can do, and speaking to the user's experience on that site too. So there's a lot you can be doing right now, and you just have to kind of prioritize for your particular business where you want to invest the time and potentially, the money if you need to get help doing some of these things.
So those are all among the owned tactics that you were recommending.
Yeah, I also recommended a couple more owned things.
Oh, good.
So focusing on your social media as well, because again, these are just digital interfaces that people are, they're just interacting with right now. And so take advantage of that. And looking at, are you in the right channels? Who's the audience in these channels? Is it, your current audience? Is it the audience you want to reach? Or is there some other aspirational audience that you're looking to reach that isn't there? You should look at this now, look at the levels of engagement you're getting, what content is working, and what things are resonating with people on various channels. If you're sharing the same thing across channels, perhaps it's working well in one channel and not in another, and there's a reason why. It may be more tailored to that channel that it's working in. So really kind of look at things, ask questions, as an audit is kind of part observing what's happening and part asking a bunch of questions to figure out what's going on. So social media is a really good thing to audit, but also once you kind of have that audit figured out and you're like, hey, the content that's working is more visual, or the content that's working is more entertaining, like a video, try new things. Video is a pretty engaging thing right now. And the sort of barrier to entry on it is really low. It does not have to be very high polished. I think, as you were mentioning a second ago, this is maybe a good time to collect testimonials. They don't have to be polished, like with background music and, all kinds of crazy things. No, I mean, you can just record a Zoom call, and just edit out to the piece that matters. It's really, really easy to use video right now, or to go live like we're doing. Try new things. I think that's just sort of my mantra is you don't know what's going to work. If you're a small business and you have a shop, or you have a manufacturing process or some sort of process, break it down, videotape it and break it down into small pieces. So you end up with like, it's one process from, it was a piece of cloth and now it's a mask. Break it all down and then share that out over time and see how that does. We learned in a report about the Gen Z that they first and foremost, they need to be entertained to pay attention, and then you can educate them later on in the sales funnel. I think that is probably pretty indicative of any generation at this moment. Like the things that are getting through the clutter and that we pay attention to are the ones that entertain us at first.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Always the case. I'm thinking of Budweiser frogs here. I mean, it's a classic. There's a lot of classic things that aren't really speaking to product characteristics or specifications at all, and they're just about a feeling or a vibe. Just trying to break through the noise.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think also too, whatever you do, be authentic, going back to that, evaluating your brand messaging and your voice and your tone, whatever you do, just make it, feel real and feel very on brand with, who you are and how you're approaching this moment in time. So yeah, that was social media. And then the last thing from an own perspective that I talked about on the webinar was email marketing. We talked a little bit about email marketing last week too. But, now is a really good time to harness your existing list or even grow it. But specifically, kind of your existing list, if that's made up of customers or prior customers, or maybe it's prospects, whatever it is, it's really effective from a cost standpoint to use email, and it gets to people really fast. So if you need to let people know that you're going to be open during a window of time, or you only have this much left in your ordering, or you're having a promotion or whatever it is, like that is literally the fastest way that you can reach them. So utilize that platform.
If you have questions, folks, about like what is okay, what kind of list you can use, again, go back and look at last week's episode, or ask us a question, email officehours@shiftcollaborative.com, and we'll fill in some more details about that too.
Yeah. So that was paid tactics own tactics. The next thing is paid tactics. A lot of business owners right now are questioning, should they, the limited dollars perhaps that they have, should they be doing some paid advertising to get some more attention to maybe the new product that they have or the new service that they're offering? And, I think that you definitely should consider it. You do need to think about it from a budget perspective, and perhaps you end up wanting to focus your time on the own tactics for now. But if you decide, hey, I have some money, I want to reach a larger amount of people, what can I do? So streaming services. They are, seeing a spike in usage as people's behavior, is primarily online right now. So Spotify in particular has a self-serve advertising platform that is really easy to use. I'm pretty sure my 12-year-old could set up a campaign on it. Let them know geographically, age, gender, or all genders, all devices. You can target by the interests people have. Are they listening to certain types of music? Are they listening in the car? Are they listening to comedy? Are they interested in travel? You can really kind of target by those types of interests. And or not, you can just target, by age and by geographic location. You set your own budget. You could put in $100, put in $500, whatever it is, and your time frame. And then the brilliant part is that you write a script, which does take some effort. You want to, choose the right words that are going to get through. But you put in your 70 words, because that's all you get. 70 words equals a 30-second spot, pretty much. So you put in your 70 words, you pick a type of music to go with it, and an image. So, this should include your brand. It could just be an image of your product with your brand or something like that. And then the ad clicks through to your product page or your website somewhere, taking them where they can take action. And they record it for you, and you can pick like the type of voice that you want, the age of the voice, all sorts of great, sort of specifications that you can make. And then within like 24 hours, you have a recorded spot that you can use in other places. You can download it and you can use elsewhere. Anyway, you can tell I like Spotify. So we're testing it out with a couple of clients right now. And, it's been good from an awareness standpoint. I think we look at the Spotify as more of that top of the funnel. It's not necessarily a huge lead generation, but it is getting really good awareness among the clients that we're using it for it. And I like it for the budget thing too. You can really specify what you're comfortable spending.
That's great that they have the voice artists already lined up there too, so that you're not tempted to record your own thing with your.
You can upload. So that's the other thing. If you had your own that you loved, that you had done on radio a couple years ago and it still works today and you want to use it again, you can upload it. Or if you have capabilities to do your own voiceover, you have a really great radio voice, whatever it might be, you can upload your own. I should mention.
But I was also saying that there are so many voice artists who have their, home studios that are really super well equipped. And I'm sure that's who Spotify is working with and hopefully supporting real well.
Yeah, I hope so. Other types of streaming things, there's Hulu. So if you have a TV spot by chance, then you could do Hulu. That's, more on the expensive side of paid advertising, but it's a way from a streaming standpoint to reach people, in a moment that they're watching a movie. So if you sell a product that sort of people that like to watch movies, I don't know, warm fuzzy socks, not sure what it is, but Snuggies, those like, full body blankets. I wear one of those when I watch a movie. So anyway, if that makes sense, that's a more expensive platform, but it's another platform that is gaining traction right now. And then, any of your local radio stations, even print publications, they sometimes have streaming or they have podcasts, and those can be good places to advertise on a pretty cost-effective basis as well. So, I'm thinking iHeartMedia and, the Pittsburgh Community Broadcasting, and they have WESA and WYEP. And so you can do streaming ads as well as radio ads, as well as web ads and so forth. So lots of good opportunities there.
And there's usually local publications. I can think here in Pittsburgh, we've got Next Pittsburgh, we've got The Incline, we've got Very Local Pittsburgh, and all of those are really interested in getting your advertising dollars, but will also in getting you some real impressions and views.
Yeah, so that was going to be exactly what I was going to say next, which is folks like those that you just mentioned, and also Pittsburgh Current. Pittsburgh Current has podcasts. They have an email. Pittsburgh Urban Media, they do web ads and email ads. The New Pittsburgh Courier, same thing. They do, print, but they also have online and email. So, think about your audience and where they are and what they're currently reading, and, pick some local options that could potentially work for you, because they can be very affordable. And I think right now, specifically, these publications in March and April and May have lost a lot of advertisers. A lot of people have put on pause. A lot of small businesses are, not advertising right now. So, that's a little sort of just the realistic state of affairs, but that just means that you as coming in to buy media from them have a little bit of leverage. You can negotiate maybe a package based on your budget that you couldn't do, 3 or 4 months ago. So
increasingly more months ago, 5 months ago, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
How long have we been in this world?
Oh, I don't know. 3 months, 4 months. I don't know. I just make up the numbers.
5 decades.
It feels like it. And then the other paid advertising channel would be social media ads, which obviously we talked about earlier in the stream today. Paid advertisements in Facebook and Instagram, but also there's Twitter and LinkedIn and lots of different Pinterest. Really lots of different social media platforms out there that do have an advertising component. And again, I think the great benefits of social media advertising is not only is it, a place where you can name your budget, you can put in your own numbers, as opposed to being sort of beholden to a rate card, and the targeting. So, one, you're probably picking a particular platform because your customers there, but then you can really target based on where they are geographically and, what kinds of things they might be interested in. So you can kind of even narrow that targeting even further.
Exactly.
I think the other thing about social media ads, if you're already in that platform, you can target your existing customers too. So again, back to the mantra of the day, which is, it's just cost less to market to your current customers. So you can create an ad set or an ad group that just markets to them as well. And that you might have a better cost per acquisition in that particular group.
Perfect. And then, so we talked about owned channels. We talked about paid channels. And what other kinds of things are you suggesting people take a look at right now?
The last one, I'm not really sure where it falls, but you can tell me where you think it falls. So there's owned, earned, and paid. And earned is that third-party validation and, reviews and public relations and placements and articles and things of that nature. But the thing that I talked about on the call yesterday was around unique partnerships you can sort of take advantage of right now, and maybe collaborations that you can dream up right now. And so if you're, in a community, like Millvale or Etna or Sharpsburg, and you have a main street, you probably have lots of neighboring businesses. Can you work together with them? Maybe there's a couple of them, and you come up with some sort of promotion where you're all working together and you're all utilizing your own social media channels to get the word out. And really, by coming together, you then, you might have 100 customers you're marketing to, and they all have 100 customers that they're marketing to. And now you all have 600 customers that you're marketing to. So yeah, it's a cost-effective way to work with your neighbors and to collaborate and really get attention that you might not otherwise be able to get.
When in talking about this, I'm thinking about too, one of the clients that we have is the Fine Chocolate Industry Association. And so as this pandemic began, they were looking for ways to help their member companies who had to shut down in various ways, because it's crazy to think, but making chocolate is not considered an essential service in many places, but they still needed to pay their bills. And so they created an initiative, Make Mine Fine, MakeMineFine.com. Which is an online marketplace for chocolate. And so this was where, and when you're talking about partnerships, the trade association took the initiative, but if a business is part of some sort of a similar association or partnership or trade group, like use your trade group to help you get the things done, because those are people you're probably not competing directly with in some ways, who might be willing to help you, or the organization can offer a different kind of credibility or other channels that you maybe can't do directly yourself.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a trade organization by nature is, member based, and it is there to serve its members and to help them. And especially now, I think, if you think about chambers of commerce and Main Street businesses or organizations that are there specifically for the explicit purpose of helping promote the businesses in their Main Street. And that's their purpose all the time. But now, especially, they're really working very hard to raise the visibility of the businesses that are still open and what their hours are, and they're trying to get the word out. So, whether it's a trade organization or your chamber, I would say, the biggest thing to do is make yourself known to them. If you've been a member, but you haven't really been active, well, now would be a really good time to take advantage of what they're offering. I'm almost positive they're going to be willing to help you in some way. Maybe they're doing a weekly email with a roundup of businesses that are offering something. Get yourself in that email. Maybe they're doing webinars. So, do you have some sort of expertise that you can talk about that would help the larger membership? So really, just make sure you're reaching out to those folks and, seeing what they're doing and seeing how you can get involved.
Absolutely. You might be able to, working with your organization, offer to run or be involved in a committee that is going to then really focus around efforts right now. So there's lots of ways that you can get involved. And if nothing else, maybe that will help you feel a little bit better and really build those connections with the other businesses and organizations that you have these ties to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a lot of really cool, innovative, ideas that could maybe come out. And I'm trying to think of, ones that I've seen, but I don't know. The idea that I had was like a yoga studio that maybe is giving virtual yoga sessions right now could partner with like the local brewery that's next door or 3 doors down to, have a discount on a growler, and you could, have that delivered contactlessly or whatever the situation is, or you could pick it up. But, kind of just unique things or off the wall things that you wouldn't otherwise, expect those two businesses to be put together. Mm-hmm. So interesting mashups, if you will.
Sure, for sure. It's a time to experiment and try new things. So.
Yeah, for sure. You never know what's going to work. And I think just got to try. Just got to try different things.
We won't know until you try. So let me just put in one final plug there for our good client, FCIA. Go to Make Mine Fine, MakeMineFine.com. It's about fine chocolate. And see how many great chocolatiers there are around the world. And maybe you'd like to order some for yourself or someone that you love. There's also, by the way, we also list equipment suppliers. If you decide that you're tired of making sourdough bread and now is the time to learn to temper chocolate and make your own. So now is the time. Go for it. And you can learn about all the places the chocolate comes from too.
Yeah, I found the site very helpful for Easter. There was a lot of really good chocolate out there that you could order, because you couldn't, go shopping as you might normally. Yeah. So it was awesome. Yeah.
Well, those are great tips there, Sarah. It sounds like it was a really good webinar. It sounds like probably it's also going to be available online.
It is already available online. I think we actually perhaps did already or are going to at some point share the link to where it lives on. It's on Allegheny Together. I think it's AlleghenyTogether.com is their website, and they have a list of all their prior webinars too. So you can kind of peruse if you weren't able to make any of them. They make them available, as well as any of the resources that were provided during the presentation. And so for me, I had a list of links that went with my presentation.
And we'll have to get that link in the description of this video too, so people can find it later.
Sure thing.
Well, that's about it for an hour for our office hour for this week. Mm-hmm. What's been the most interesting thing you've seen in marketing at all this week, Sarah? Anything in particular?
Oh my gosh, what have I seen? I mean, Nothing is like standing out that I've seen from like an advertising standpoint, but one thing that just behavior wise is that I feel like I am attending and getting so many notices for webinars and all really good, great, content and information in the marketing world, things that I want to, advance in my own learning of our industry. But it's also at the same time a little overwhelming because there's so many.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same thing. I've watched so many. And yet, that's maybe just how we're all enjoying sharing and perceiving content right now, or many of us are anyway. So, yeah, I feel like it's a good tactic and an interesting one to try. So,
yeah, and a lot of them are free. Yeah, it's nice.
Yes, it is nice, and they're more secure than they used to be.
That's right.
Cool. Good tips, good stuff. And that's it for us for today. You can always email us any questions anytime at officehours@shiftcollaborative.com and write to us, visit our website, shiftcollaborative.com. We won't be here next week, but we will be sharing a brand new video in our Shift On series, and it will be on data reporting, which is just one of our nerdy favorite topics.
Jam.
And then we'll be back the following week with yet more questions, yet more answers, and yet more ideas.
All right, everybody.